Awesome. Hello, guys. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. It is such an honor to be here once again. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you guys so much for participating in this live challenge. It has really been an honor to hold space with you. I love your questions that you guys send me, your comments, and the kind of work that you guys are doing internally is just unbelievable. So thank you so much for that. So today I have another very important topic in our 30-day challenge to understand self-love. And so I was thinking that we were going to dive into the biology of self-love, but then I realized that there's a couple extra steps that I want to talk about before we go into the intricacies of that, because you know me, I will go very deep into those biological, the energetic system, DNA, and there's so much to unpack there. So I'm going to break those down into separate videos so that we can really understand that deeply. But to get there, let's talk about the emotional, psychological part during this first week, as we are now in day 5 of our 7-day challenge. A 30-day challenge. And so today I want to talk to you about the spiritual biology of acceptance. And the reason why we want to talk about that is because we want to talk about the depth of understanding that acceptance is actually one of the key elements of embodying self-love. There are some very profound key emotions that we need to get very familiar with. Without the familiarity of these parts of ourselves, it's really difficult for us to even comprehend unconditional self-love because it is such a vast, broad, way of being. And it's something it's kind of foreign to the majority of us because we have never been shown or demonstrated what it looks like to love unconditionally. And so that would require that we have to step outside of our own pain, our own suffering, the psychological and emotional limitations that we have built within ourselves, and all of the barriers that we have built within ourselves in order to love. We talked about that yesterday. But essentially, those barriers that we built are very interesting psychological and also biophysical effects that block energy flow through the body. And energy is life force, which is pure creativity. And what does that mean? Energetic life force that we're blocking in the body is also blocking total psychological parts of yourself, access to parts of ways of thinking, access to parts of ways of being, entire aspects of your vision is kind of screened, so to speak. We cannot access that awareness deeply. So it really requires us the ability to go deep into introspection and to cultivate, as usual, the 0 point in order to observe where we are holding back and where those barriers are within us in order to love. Because our ability to love is very intricately layered in the way that we see ourselves and the way that we judge and observe the world outside of us, and also in the way that we are co-creating in this world. So I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint. Oh, I think we got disconnected there for a moment. All right, so I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint, and I would love to share with you a couple thoughts that I put together. Let me go ahead and find that. First of all, I want to welcome you all. Hello, James. So great to see you. Love you so much. Thank you for being here. Brave Seal, thank you for being here. I'm so glad you guys are here. Everybody is joining us. Let me jump into the chat here, and I am going to pull up the presentation for today. And yeah, so we're going to talk about different aspects of this, because the thing about emotions that we need to understand is that emotions are not just feelings. It's literally entire structures of the body. It's an entire energetic signature. Each emotion, how we hold those emotions in our bodies, are entire energetic signatures. And it's also mindsets, perceptions, belief systems all participate in these belief systems, and they're interwoven in as I mentioned, the way that we feel about ourselves, the way we feel about others, and the majority of these are inherited and passed down through generations. So, when we think of our DNA, we often think of DNA as only markers of health and markers of illness that's passed down through generations. And more recently, we're aware that it's passing down trauma. But as I mentioned many times, our DNA is also holding memory of how expansive we have accessed our level of awareness, how we are able to love, how we are able to tune into our higher faculties, our intuition. All of that is encoded in our DNA and passed down through generations. And the roots of those belief systems are in the woundings that are passed down, in the traumas that are passed down through generations. Yesterday we talked about the love you withhold is the pain and the suffering that you carry lifetime to lifetime. Well, most of what we're going to talk about in this challenge is going to go back to that, because where we are holding our childhood wounds are usually where we are programmed very deeply subconsciously in the way that we present ourselves to the world and we interact with the world around us. So one of the elements of self-acceptance, pretty much if we practice constant lack of self-acceptance and rejection towards the self, I'm talking about the whole self, the whole part of the self, your thoughts, your emotions, your physical aspect, your the way that you have cultivated personalities, the way that you believe things in the world, your cultural and religious influences on the way that you think, all parts of yourself. It's really important that we dedicate time to get to know ourselves very deeply. And the more that we do not get to know ourselves, the more that we lose track of those very important parts of us that need to learn and grow. This is where we start to find a disassociation, a separation between the authentic self and the true self and the one that's being presented in the world. So the majority of suffering and the majority of why people are so confused about love is because we so strongly compartmentalize parts of ourselves in ways that make us feel disassociated from our truth and our authenticity. So to get back to the root of that is the wound itself. Whether you are able to tap into your authenticity and self-acceptance, and do you feel safe with authenticity? In order for you to learn to accept yourself, it's really important for you to be truly authentic, to allow yourself the ability to see yourself as you really are. And this is something that for many people starting off on this journey, it's going to be a series of existential realizations of who we are, depending on how far away you've gotten from yourself or how strongly you've practiced suppressing your authentic self. Finding the true self underneath those layers is going to be something that will take time, because oftentimes we might not even know that we are in pain. We might not even know that we're suffering. We might not even know that we have been in betrayal or denial of our own truths. When I first started out in this journey, I remember that when I was revisiting aspects of myself, I realized after doing the meditation of seeing myself from the third person perspective, from the outside in, I began to really realize how my perception to the external world was being received and why. And literally the intricacies of facial expressions, the way I held my energy, the way I spoke, the way I interacted, were expressing internal woundings that I myself had not known. And then as a result of that, becoming very familiar with how that triggers externally. And then others becoming triggered by the awareness of those parts of myself, because then I would change patterns of how I would present myself, and that would throw people off guard. They would be very used to a different presentation. And so, a lot of the work that I do on a daily basis with my clients is dealing with this kind of transition point of from going from the false self into the authentic self. And there's a lot of support that's needed for the true self, because we need to regulate the nervous system in a way that we begin to learn to feel safe with our authenticity. And you might be surprised how much we modulate ourselves in order to fit in, or to be accepted, or to be loved. And the deepest part of the wounding is that how have you become or held on to parts of yourself, identities of yourself, masks. How many masks do you wear in order to be loved and accepted by others? This is where we start coming into the inner child. And the inner child, essentially, whatever the inner child is feeling within the wounds that have not been healed, we are usually we are a conglomeration of all of these little aspects, wounds of ourselves, and our personalities, our presentation, our interaction, our ability to exchange life force with one another is based purely on how we are wounded. And everything possible, this is a survival state of consciousness in order to avoid triggering that wound. Okay, so avoiding feeling that part of ourselves, and avoiding the acknowledgement of that part of ourselves. And essentially, we go into pretty deep self-destructive behavior in trying to escape and deny these aspects of ourselves. So these are steps that we have to take in order to understand why we don't love and why we cannot love and accept ourselves fully. These are wounds that have to be addressed. These are a couple of the wounds that are strongest in our world today. We have a lot of guilt woundings. It can be anything from sexual abuse to, families where authenticity is not welcome, or there's a severe cultural or religious impressions and ideas of what should be right and wrong. This dualistic way of seeing things as good and bad is creating a constant separation between the true self and what one is experiencing or wanting to express. So those are deep wounds. Trust wounds. We are unable to trust ourselves. We're unable to trust others. And this is a really strong one, because this expresses out into our relationships very strongly in how we are interacting in the world. And it is wounding in primarily the sacral and the third eye, which is our system of intuition. So anytime that we begin to come into self-betrayal, especially because usually we begin to mirror self-betrayal behavior that mother and father played out. And that teaches us how to handle trust in ourselves, trust with others. And then abandonment, right? So we feel abandoned by the external world. This can be a father or a mother that was not there, either in the presence, in the physical, or emotionally unavailable, right? Emotionally unavailable, physically not being touched or hugged as a child, or having affection. All of these can portray it as an abandonment wound. And this really deeply gets into the multidimensional body, because the body energetically begins to practice contraction and disappearing, and then inability to expand into our full presence. And of course, as I mentioned before, anytime that we're practicing contraction, mind, body, and soul, our DNA is also not working in its optimum function. Every single one of these inner child wounds has its implications in the multidimensional body and how DNA is basically expressed. So neglect wounds, so anytime that we are feeling neglected, or ostracized or separated or rejected by our community, our friends, our family, this is usually where we begin to really go into very deep self-hate, self-judgment. And this kind of constant rejection really ends up in a lot of physical, psychological, mental illnesses, because we are literally attacking ourselves from the inside. So you're going to see a lot of things like immune system problems, and a lot of everything from asthma to cancer to leukemia. I mean, we can go down the list. There are many immune suppressed illnesses that occur as a result of this constant neglecting, wounding that happens as a child. And so, of course, when these are the strong filters of our reality, it becomes really hard to understand who we really are underneath. And to really get to the healing of this, we have to learn to see ourselves not as any of these storylines, but rather as pure energy, pure life force, this impermanent soul that is just, it's infinite. We are actually infinite. And that's usually the hardest part of our journey in the body in the embodying self-love. So, obviously, all of these wounds result in a deep feeling of being unsafe. And this is the biggest multidimensional effect of being unsafe, is that the root chakra becomes distorted to the point where it literally begins to create cracks. When chakras or your energy centers are constantly holding negative energy, or in other words, they are out of balance and or overworking in processing emotions without having fluidly regenerative systems, which means that when they're out of balance for a long time and we don't, at least at some point, rebalance the energy that we're holding in these energy centers, they literally become out of harmony and they become distorted to the point where they can crack. And what does that mean? That these are vortices of energy. And so when these vortices of energy go through severe trauma, literally it will begin to become disrupted, because in order for a vortex to become powerful and centripetal, it has to be inwardly moving. It has to be moving in the direction of its most healing energy. And every single one of the chakras move back and forth, right and left, depending on how energy needs to move through there. Moving to the left is usually the divine feminine energy, so that's usually the receiving. Moving to the right is usually expelling and cleansing, and it's giving, right? So this is the masculine, feminine way in which energy moves through the body. And a body that is in harmony, the energy is moving back and forth in that receiving and giving, braiding of life force through the entire core of the body, from the root chakra all the way up into the crown. So anytime that a chakra begins to block its natural ebb and flow of these positive, negative energies, feminine and masculine energies in each one of the chakras, not just one chakra, all chakras individually have to be balancing feminine and masculine energy. Oftentimes it creates a distortion in how the energy is held there. And this looks like cracks in your chakra system. People will develop illnesses. They will feel extremely disconnected from their higher self, lonely, depressed, even suicidal, as a result of these kinds of emotional states energetically. So this feeling unsafe usually is demonstrated in the root chakra. The root chakra becomes fragmented, right? And so I will explain the different kinds of chakra traumas. Let me write that down. That's something that I will create for you guys, a series on chakra trauma, so we can understand how emotional blockages impact the energy body. But essentially, whenever we are unsafe with our truth, especially, you see, truth is the embodiment of wholeness. When we embody truth, we are aligning with natural cycles of the earth. We are aligning with natural laws of the universe. And truth includes many different perspectives, not just one perception. It is multidimensional and it is holistic. For us, we often think that we in this world, we were programmed to believe that truth is dualistic and it's only one-sided and there can only be one side that's true. But as we are moving into a higher dimension, our perception is requiring us to expand in a way that we understand things as multidimensional. And this is why I stress so much the training of holding your nervous system in a regulated state so that you can sustain balance regardless of what is occurring outside of you or what external stimulations might want to pull you out of your center. It is extremely important for the human to learn how to sustain a deep integrated observer, and that is the regulated system. That's a balanced immune system. Energetically, that's in a really expanded energetic field, and essentially this allows you to access broader perceptions of truth every time. Healing, which means becoming whole, really means expanding your perception. And suffering and depression and pain is very myopic perceptions. So in healing, we are learning how to expand our perception from a very myopic view of a one-sided perception of an experience into a multidimensional perception of the same experience in order for you to broaden your understanding and therefore removing yourself from playing out one role in that experience. So when we learn how to essentially feel safe in our body, we begin to reintegrate those parts of ourselves. We begin to expand our field. Our energy centers can process more life force. Okay. And of course, when we are unsafe, it is nearly impossible to heal the body. Our physical body is, sorry, hold on one second. Let me just check this really quickly. Our physical body is severely affected by the fact that we are incapable of self-healing and self-regenerating. So this is extremely important. Make sure that I'm recording this. Sorry, this is extremely important. So we are stagnating our healing, and feeling unsafe really blocks your ability to access healing both emotionally and physically. Okay, so when I talk about emotions, as you know, I'm talking about this very potent creative life force. Each emotion is a bioelectrical charge, and so how we process that in the world is really being affected in the body. Okay, so in order to feel safe, we need to create a safe environment, and that means that we have to prioritize our creating an environment that will promote healing for ourselves. Okay, so we have to let go of distractions. We have to let go of toxic exchanges. Once we realize that those toxic relationships aren't good for us, we make the necessary changes in order to shift where our attention is being drawn. If the majority of your attention is being depleted constantly, your body cannot heal, and you also will not be able to find the life force to focus on redirecting that attention. So it's really important that this is really the embodiment of self-love when we make those tough choices, even though it might be difficult to make these transitions in our life, moving away from toxic relationships, environments that are not nurturing to our soul, habits that are self-destructive, whether it's social media, television, news, whatever it is that our habits are that create a biochemical reaction that make us feel certain ways, it's very important that we learn to start choosing what is necessary for us. Okay. And of course, as I mentioned, it's going to help heal the body. So let's talk about the biophysical impact of self-rejection. When we go into deep states of lack of self-acceptance, we essentially are rejecting the body fundamentally. We're rejecting parts of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. And this constant state of self-rejection is so self-destructive. Because we confuse, so the human body, innately, it is aligned. When we're born, we're deeply in harmony. We are deeply connected with source. We are so open. Our energy centers are open and fluid, and they start to close down and they start to process external programs. And as I mentioned, by the age of 7, we usually adopt everything that we learned from our environment in order to embody the survival program of the Matrix. So when we are constantly embodying this survival program, we tend to begin to feel the disassociation with what we feel innately to be true. Our internal guidance system is wanting to align us with what's natural. And I know this because working with children innately know. They recognize immediately. You don't have to teach them. They know what is right, and they know what is inharmonious, what is harmonious and what is inharmonious. It's incredible how they tune to that, even if they're 3, 4 years old. So we have embedded within us, within the subconscious mind, an innate connection to that natural harmony. So anytime that we start to betray that internal voice of harmony, this is where we start to embody a disassociation between what we know and what the external world is saying we should be. That process is what creates profound programs of self-rejection. And essentially, when we start to see that this disconnect is not welcome in our environments, in our schools, in our family circles, we begin to reject parts of ourselves. And this gets internalized into the rejection of natural parts of ourselves. And this is really important in healing. Whenever we do DNA reprogramming into a certain belief system, let's say I'm not good enough, if you take that all the way down, you're going to find layers in your childhood where you began to notice natural parts of yourself. Let's say when you were going through puberty and you start growing a beard, and it was rejected by classmates. Just simply those things, the way that it was, received by family, by friends, at school. Schools have turned into such critical, environments for children. And this is because we don't cultivate at home enough awareness of this, of acceptance in general. We are a product still of strong cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, and oftentimes it makes us create hierarchies of right and wrong and what is acceptable and what's not. So, children begin to feel that parts of themselves are disgusting or impure or not good, and oftentimes it's subconsciously, whenever we start rejecting our innate truth, we also reject nature. And the human body has many parts of itself that are beautiful and natural and expressive. There's also parts that are not so, sometimes difficult to accept as natural. I mean, anything from ourselves, the fact that we release out of our bodies, those things can be perceived as impure and not good, or something unsavory, right? So what we need to understand is that subconsciously, the rejection that we receive from the external world and how that's processed psychologically in ourselves is also goes against what is natural, what is innately true to the human. And we begin a campaign of rejection of all parts of ourselves. So the human essentially is compartmentalizing itself from what is good, what is bad throughout their adolescence and then adulthood. And sometimes it takes a long time for us to get to those root belief systems. But every time that a human has a profound program of self-hate and self-rejection, I find that they also hold a strong feelings of disgust, self-disgust for parts of themselves, for their natural human expressions, everything from burping to physical gases to the way that we smell. We literally begin to subconsciously reject natural parts of our human body and our human expression. And so anytime that the human starts to separate themselves from natural parts of ourselves, we are very easily manipulated and programmed from the external world. So this is something that really has to be looked at because, as you know, in this world, capitalism really capitalizes on the fact that we reject ourselves in such profound ways. We are so easily manipulated when we reject ourselves or when we criticize aspects of ourselves. And this is that creative life force is redirected towards consumerism and a deep programming that the external is the source of our happiness and our acceptance or our joy. So this is something that we need to really understand because our children are very heavily targeted in this way in schools and with music, with the entertainment industry in every direction is constantly embedding subliminal messages of disconnect with what is natural. So this is something that as we mature, seemingly we seem to outgrow, but in reality, we're still playing along with this when we are disconnected from our emotional states and we fall into cycles of depression. For older adults, it becomes capitalizing on the hormonal shifts, right? For women, how they go through hormonal changes, and for men, in the same thing, hormonal loss, hormones that are being lost in their body. Also, we have people having midlife crises, right? Because they have not cultivated the time to get to know themselves enough in their pure authenticity. So we have people in their 50s, 40s that are waking up again, remembering themselves and realizing they're not who they really were. They've been playing a facade the entire life. So, all of these phases of our lives, and the human has 3 phases, right? The birth, adolescence, when we go through puberty, and then when we're going through menopause or entering into the older age. And we essentially, each one of these phases of the human has a biophysical, biospiritual structure to it that should be supported. When the human is more connected with nature, these transitions and these changes become more harmonious and more elegant per se. They're not as difficult for the human. So this is something that is important in the multidimensional body, and it blocks from our ability to love ourselves. So let's talk a little bit deeper about the energetic effects and the spiritual effects of self-hate and self-rejection, the lack of self-acceptance. I mean, we're really talking about the shadow self, right? All the deepest, darkest shadow aspects of ourselves. And my invitation is that as you go down the rabbit hole of the things that you most reject about yourself, to begin to look at the programs that you have around that, because you're going to find that you you actually, in the same way that you judge yourself, right, in this, you hold yourself at certain standards, you're holding other things outside of yourself as well. And the thing with the shadow self is that uh, you're going to find that what you judge outside of yourself is a mirror. It's a mirror for the things that you still have not dealt with internally, that you fear facing. So in my journey, I discovered my fear of abuse, for example, any kinds of abuse, like sexual abuse, physical abuse. What does that feel like in the body? How does that form the way that we see ourselves as women, for example, or as men? How does that participate in the way that we see our roles in this world? The shadow self is really holding on to all of those taboos and shadows of humanity. And please understand that when you go down this rabbit hole, you will begin to understand how unified we are in this world. You are not separate from anything outside of you, because the people that are playing out atrocities in this world are holding the same patterns of self-rejection that we hold at different levels. And so if we really truly want to see change in this world, we need to learn to alchemize those root programs, because that is what feeds into the collective subconscious of self-destruction, self-hate, the annihilation of another, in any way, in any way, for any reason, in order to embody unity consciousness and eventually unconditional love. We need to address those shadow parts of ourselves. And please understand that whether you're talking about ET beings, reptilians, draconians, and you don't want to do anything to do with them, revisit those strong impulses and those strong emotions. Any person that says that they are only light and not darkness is a major red flag, because there are major parts of themselves and facets of themselves that they've not revisited, that they're compartmentalizing. And that is big trouble because the human essentially has to have the resilience, both bioelectrically, bioemotionally, multidimensionally, in order to sustain themselves in the dualistic nature of all dimensional planes. And this is why people experience trauma. We experience trauma because we want to see ourselves as one way, and you simply are just not one way. It doesn't matter how you look at yourself, from which dimension you're looking at. In fact, the higher the dimension you go, the more multidimensional you become. And trust me that the higher you go, the lowest you also open up in your awareness. And that's something that's very difficult for some people to understand, because they want to play along with this idea of hierarchy, that once you get high up, you don't touch what's down there. Not at all. That's the biggest misconception. And it's one of the biggest traps, karmic traps, that we play out spiritually in the bigger picture. Essentially, the reincarnation cycle feeds on our patterns of self-rejection, because anytime that we cannot accept ourselves for what we really are as multidimensional, we close ourselves back into the matrix, and we cannot I don't really want to say graduate, but we are initiating, is the proper word. We are initiating into a higher octave of existence. So all of your attachments to the physical, all of your attachments to, physical aspects of yourself that you cannot transcend, you cannot understand, you cannot integrate, will absolutely entangle you in the karmic cycles of incarnation. Okay, so, and of course, there's an order to the cyclical incarnation pattern. There are 13 main archetypes that all humans are experiencing, at different levels and at different stages of their life. But essentially, as we continue to repeat the emotional pain of separation every lifetime, separation, right? So the inability to accept is the absolute acceptance of separation. In order to embody unity consciousness, we have to embody absolute acceptance of yourself multidimensionally. Finally, the level of blockage that it causes in your ability to access your higher self is tremendous, because as long as you stay compartmentalizing yourself from another or for something or an ideology or something external to you that you feel is not you, and when I say that, like, if you have a strong emotional charge of rejection towards something, that is your gold right there. That is where your work is. That is the metal that you're going to alchemize into gold. And the gold is the ability to, embody unconditional love, essentially. And this is what our world needs so desperately right now, because this year is going to be a tumultuous year of major change and transformation and everything uprooting for the sole purpose of destruction. Because in order to have a change in our world, the old systems that didn't work have to destruct. But before we go there, we have to see what was wrong with them. And many people are under the illusion that, things are okay or things are fine. And there's a lot of uprooting of that. So my invitation to you, in order for this year to be more gentle, is that you go into those uprooting parts of yourself so that you can gently, lovingly guide yourself into the flexibility of moving through change and transition, and cultivating your higher faculties as much as possible. Because the human body that is disconnected from their lower parts of themselves cannot reach the higher octaves of themselves. Even if you might think that you are, you're not really. And those higher levels will never integrate fully into your body. So multidimensionally, what happens in the physical body is that it's a vibrational frequency, and you cannot imitate, and you cannot pretend that you are embodying unconditional love. In a real multidimensional way. So, the integration of these parts of you, and that is the whole purpose of the incarnation on the physical plane, is that you integrate the higher self with the physical, and that you use the physical vessel to move through higher dimensions as high as you possibly can, while still anchoring into the physical. So this is something that is really, really important for us in this process. So let's talk about, the inheritance. Let's talk about DNA. So the thing with non-acceptance that I see when I do hypnotherapies, and I see people experiencing so many different lifetimes, is that we literally are inheriting patterns of restriction and blockages in ourselves for many generations. So the first part of this is to embody a profound level of self-awareness, and to observe every moment of your day when you are embodying a profound self-rejection and compartmentalizing parts of yourself that you don't want to touch. Right now, astrologically, energies are really promoting the ability to look at these emotions. And for some people, those emotions might be feeling like they're exacerbated, and it's just impossible to sit with the emotion. And this is because you need to see how it's affecting your physical life. You need to observe how these ways of thinking are blocking you from embodying your own truth. So we inherit these patterns tremendously. And the biggest problem with this is that we can never be able to embody our true self as long as we continue to repeat these cycles of self-rejection. Okay. And it's also something that we want to demonstrate to our children, because our children, they can feel everything. And when we reject ourselves, they learn to reject themselves and others as well, subconsciously. So this is something that we want to demonstrate to our youth, that the moment that we embody self-love, self-acceptance, we begin to become this example in which we act with integrity, and our actions, our thoughts, our emotions are in harmony, rather than creating distorted states of chaos in our family circles and family systems. Okay, so let's go into understanding this embodied, incarnating moment of life that you guys have is quite impermanent. It's a very fleeting moment, and that's something that we need to remember. Practicing the present moment is absolutely essential to this work, because it's in the present moment that you can begin to become aware of yourself and where you are avoiding or rejecting or judging parts of yourself and others, and therefore begin to cultivate acceptance. Acceptance is not just that we are starting to, accept the things that are hard to accept outside of ourselves or internally, but internally, this is the key to alchemy. When we learn how to accept parts of ourselves that are our shadows, we are cultivating bioelectrical resilience in the body. And that means that we are growing gray matter in the body as we learn to sit with these difficult aspects emotionally with us. And the end result of that is a profound internal peace, a profound level of reconnection with our higher self, with source, and the regulated nervous system, which helps us exist in harmony, is what allows us to be in a deep state of self-acceptance, in order to embody unconditional love. And the goal, the invitation, I should say, of the incarnation in the physical realm is to eventually learn how to embody unconditional love. And this is something that is so profound. But in order to love anything, or anyone, we first have to learn to love ourselves. And in order to love yourself, you must learn to accept yourself fully, completely, and radically as you are. Because the paradox is that as soon as you accept yourself for what you are, that is the only time when you can actually change anything. And you will also know how to change it. In which direction do you need to change? Why you need to change. And in the process of answering those questions is where you develop compassion for yourself, because you begin to realize how rejection is so toxic for yourself. Rejection of others, rejection of yourself is such a toxic pattern that provides profound suffering and has been creating suffering for many generations down your ancestral lineage. When you really sit with that truth and begin to notice how father, mother have gone through cycles of just killing themselves in order to deny their truth or to hold space for injustices in the world without loving themselves and taking care of themselves, you begin to realize, how being awake and conscious will absolutely redirect your attention from consumerism and external distractions into the internal reconnection of yourself. And this is where we start to embody that centripetal spin of the life force moving inward in a way that we are regenerative, self-sustaining, self-healing, intuitive, highly discerning, and with a very expanded perception that is essentially the purpose of being multidimensional. Okay, so this is extremely important, and that's really the number one purpose of this work. So I'm going to stop right there, and I would love to jump into the questions, and also I'm going to lead the meditation. So let me just go into the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's always such a joy to see you guys. Madame Mystique Noor. Hello, Geraldine. So wonderful to see you, Madame. Charles, welcome. Pona, welcome. Hi, Geraldine. You say we are on the pursuit of love. I can't understand how love and law of cause and effect is playing out in a 3-year-old girl getting abused by a man. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. So the thing is that is right now we see the world in such a very specific compartmentalized way. But first of all, what I want you to focus on is the emotions that you feel when you tune into that. And to be able to see those circumstances and put yourself in the shoe of the other person. Okay. And some of you might hear this and you're like cringing, like, how is that even possible? I don't want to. Okay. But here's the thing. Experiences that touch our lives do not touch our lives randomly. All experiences in our lives are mirrors to parts of ourselves that have to be revisited. Okay, so what do I mean by that? If you begin to observe the abuser in this example, and you begin to notice what happened to that abuser for the abuser to behave in that way. The abuser is a product of abuse, probably horrific abuse that we're not even familiar with. And they are a product of neglect and a very wounded inner child. And especially with sexual abuse, there's a tendency for wanting to replay out, but also any abuse. We replay the abuse because in the filing cabinet of when that experience happened, we cannot process. We don't understand what happened to us. So we have to relive the experience over and over again. In the same way that when a child is rejected, and then they internalize that and they learn to reject themselves in order to hopefully avoid being rejected by others. In this same example, this abuser has the same process and will play out that abuse in different ways, whatever way it is. So in order to embody unconditional love in this world, we need to be able to see that, okay? And it doesn't mean that we have to accept it as this is something that's right. No, it is not something that is harmonious or healing. But every single human, even that child, has a contractual agreement with this human. Okay, every single person. And those laws of experience transcend our understanding because we want to look at time as linear. It's like this happens now, now, now. But our human life experience is actually influenced by many dimensions in which we're existing. So there are many lifetimes that we have. There are contractual lifetime agreements between the child and that person, okay, in which they have played and maybe switched roles many times in their lifetime, karma down that lineage for a long time, okay? These are things that we wanna dismiss because we think that's ridiculous. It still doesn't make sense. But when we go into deep healing, and we begin to heal the child and the adult separately, these are the things that start to come out. And the mirrors that are in the ancestral lineage of the abuser and the ancestral lineage of the child are mirroring. Okay, this ancestral lineage has a profound connection, many, many, many generations, and they are healing something that has been occurred for many generations. The invitation for both of these participants in this experience is to wake up consciousness and to learn to end that cycle. So I've worked with abusers also. And when you begin to work with the abuser, the amount of shame, the amount of guilt, the amount of self-hate that they hold within their bodies is profound, profound. And oftentimes they go into pretty deep, psychological illnesses as a result of that profound illness and hate that they have towards themselves. So, we need to understand both sides of human condition. There's many layers to that. And for us, watching these things happen, there's many lessons for us. The agreement includes all affected parties in these systems. And what we begin to understand is that the root cause of self-hate of the abuser, it's the same one that we are feeling within ourselves. So this is the invitation. And this is close to home, what the example that you're giving. So I'm not speaking randomly as if, I'm not familiar with that. I work with this all the time in my practice. So it's something that we need to understand cause and effect, and it transcends beyond our understanding in this physical world, because it's a good example of the multidimensionality of cause and effect. And one thing I've learned is that when we wake up consciousness and we become aware of our patterns, we also tend to choose differently. Okay. For example, if there was a mother that was not aware that that was happening, and you begin to study her levels of consciousness, her self-rejection, her feelings of unworthiness, which is why she didn't feel worthy of speaking out, or when she noticed something, to do something. You see, every single participant plays a role. So the healing is for everyone in that circle. The parents involved, the child involved, the abuser, everyone is healing something that they have been challenged with for many lifetimes. So the moment that we begin to do our work, that is when we begin to understand how these dynamics play out, and to begin to cultivate a profound compassion. Okay. So, and there's many examples of that. And I talk about how, especially sexual abuse is one of the most soul fragmenting experiences. And this is why it's so rampant in our world in regards to the parasitism that there is in the world today, that literally, churches and a lot of religious groups have really, really focused on that, because there is an absorption of life force that comes from abuse in that way. And so we need to come back again to understand that these systems have to kind of deconstruct, because they have abused those natural truths. All of our participation of having external gods, worshiping something outside of us, is our participation in those systems that are parasitic. So there's a lot that has to change. And, we need to participate in that by being able to open our eyes very wide to be able to see the different facets of these things in a loving, compassionate way. Is playing out here is that she did something similar, or someone can be soul, just never in any reincarnation, but Daniel had fear around it. Right. And actually, PJ, the fact that we have fear around it, here's another very important part. Thank you for reminding me. Speaks to our fear around our sexuality or our desires. Okay. So sexual abuse exists in this world in order for the human to learn about sex. And hear me out, because unfortunately our understanding of sex has been severely inverted. And the way that we think of sex is that it's taboo, it's shameful, from the perspective of religion or certain cultures as well. Talk about sex as being impure, or we only have to get married before we have that. All of those concepts have made it so that one of the most important primordial life forces of humanity has become suppressed, convoluted in our understanding. And the truth about that life force has been manipulated, distorted, parasitized, all of these things. Okay. So we need to heal our understanding of our primordial life force. And any shame of our desires, of our natural self, as I was saying in that presentation, natural parts of ourselves, sexual desire has to be looked at as something natural again. This is why we have so much distortion in this world. And there are many things that are changing in our world to move us away from a dualistic perception as well into a more neutral perception, even in the concept of sex. Because higher advanced civilizations in other planetary systems, they don't have sexes, the division of sex, female, masculine sex anymore. It is a unified system of energy, an integrated system. We as humans on this planet Earth are learning duality with these two separate sex energies that help us create. When they unite, we're learning separation, we're learning unity, we're learning creation, we're learning harmony. So as I mentioned in the live a couple of days ago, in the stage in which we are evolving, we're still a pretty primitive human race. Okay, we're still learning all these things. We're still learning to understand them. So as we are learning, we're beginning to understand. So my invitation, especially if you have strong emotions about this, take a look at what's underneath those strong emotions. Your fear of your own desires, your fear of your own sexual desires, the fear of pleasure, fear of intimacy. That's a big one. The majority of people that are abusers, sexual abusers, and people that become abused have very strong insecurities and fears around their intimacy. And it's something that goes down the bloodline for many generations. So that's something that we have kind of been blinded by in this world as a result of major compartmentalization of everything. So we're healing that. And to embody unity consciousness means to be able to heal that separate perception of everything. Okay? So yeah, we'll talk more about that in the future. So yes, it is about resonance, right? Because as I mentioned, let's say the fear of intimacy, for example, is a resonance. And so I think also I talked about safety in that our real safety is actually when we address our fears. When we suppress our fears, we're actually way more in danger to circumstances than if we were to face, integrate, process, heal the separate fragmentations of those fears. Why? Because everything in this universe is vibrational. Okay, so if we have deep insecurities of ourselves, we manifest and we attract experiences that trigger or reinforce the belief systems of insecurity or fear or doubt, right? We have stalkers, or we have abusers, or we have bullies, things like this, right? They become manifested. And so another thing is that we need to change our perception of the human experience from thinking that we are victims. And I know that especially when we talk about a topic like this, in which we talk about a child being powerless and innocent, in reality, in the bigger picture, and trust me, I know how on the surface level this can seem difficult to understand, but there is a natural order to things. Every single human is growing through their experience, their pain, their suffering. We are growing, we are alchemizing. And in the bigger picture of things, every human is growing from there. I cannot tell you how many survivors of abuse in this way have become powerful voices of truth and healing and transformation for humanity. And really, it drove them to really make major change in many facets of our human understanding. So there is always a cause and effect, and sometimes we tend to focus on the negative effect of the things rather than looking at the bigger picture. Okay, and we can learn to transmute these potential experiences by coming more into harmony with ourself, with our truth, healing the traumas that we have within ourselves in order to hold space for a higher frequency, and also holding space for our children. When we heal sexual trauma in our lineage, our child also changes the frequency in the way that they're playing out sexual trauma. Okay, and that's another deeper layer, that abuse falls in the family. And this is what I see over and over and over again. Usually the parent of the abused child also had abuse, whether it's them imposing it on the child or them allowing it to occur from someone else. Okay, so again, this is another layer of reinforcement to understand how these cyclical karmic cycles are passed down through the generations. So the sooner we begin to open our eyes and heal from the root core belief systems that drive humanity into hurting and harming ourselves and each others in such severe ways, this is where we begin to have a different society. Okay. PJ says, what about lying to let go? How does it impact us? Example, let's say I'm switching a career, previous one, a very prestigious, but I took it to be accepted now. Right. Yeah, so okay, I don't wish to continue, but others around keep asking, so I just say I am freelancing, working from home while I'm not. Does it affect us, our love and our authenticity within? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and this is exactly what I was talking about, that, you know, we tend to put masks on in order to be accepted. So what we really need to look at is, first of all, who are we allowing as our judges and our assessors? Who are we trying to please and gain acceptance for? Are they examples of compassionate, unconditionally loving beings? And will the love and the quality of the love that they give us really depend on the kind of work that we're doing, or is that their own limitation, right? Because chances are that the people that we are so desperately looking to be loved by simply don't have the tools to love and accept that we are hoping they have. And we can see that very clearly in the way that they live out their lives, in how they accept themselves, they accept their family, they hold space for you. For example, if there's a lot of judgment going on, if there's criticism and talking and judging, then you can pretty much understand that actually, even if you get the most amazing job, chances are they will continue that pattern. So this is where we start to mature out of toxic cycles of self-destruction, because anytime that we continue to betray ourselves in really profound ways, we are perpetuating the exact same trauma that they are playing out with themselves. Highly judgmental, highly denial of our truth, highly living in fear away from what is truly in harmony with ourselves and others. So this kind of self-betrayal is something that, you know, we're wasting life. And essentially, it turns into deep levels of self-hate, because we subconsciously store that rejection towards our true state. And the amount of tension that you hold in your body when they ask you, what are you doing? You need to take a look at that, because I can guarantee that your solar plexus is knotted up and you're trying to think, what do I say? What do I say in order to hold space for their truth rather than mine? That dynamic is trauma. That is very traumatic, and it's complete betrayal of your higher self and your soul and your authenticity. So in this world, you know, this is how we participate to sustaining those kinds of perceptions in the world. This is how we contribute to wars and injustice and suffering and abuse in the world. And the thing is, we think we're so separate from it, but it's exactly that that is the contribution, because you become a frequency of rejection of your own authenticity. So this is like really important to see. And most people won't understand that until they sit with themselves and really get serious about how we are betraying ourselves. Okay. And we also understand how we are connected. We are one. We hold the same trauma of the ones that we're afraid of, the same trauma of the abusers, the same people that we hate and we reject. We have little seeds of that in us. And the root of that is exactly the reason why we reject it so much to begin with. So chakra being imbalanced is mainly on what belief system we create when an event happens. Our perception of it is not what the other person said about us, but what mean we attach to it, what meaning we attach to it. If we immediately transmute on the spot, then we trigger arises. There's no chance of other person's words or action affecting us. So basically, you give power to other people. As I just mentioned, you are the one that gives power to other people in how you react and respond to the environment. It's the present moment and self-awareness that helps you choose your response. If you love yourself enough to create a space in between your reaction and your truth, you will be able to act more congruently. And the more that you start having that integrity, you will feel more proud of yourself. That pride in your actions that is cautious, compassionate, loving to yourself is how you build self-love. And I'm going to talk deeper about that process later on. But essentially, we need to learn to have integrity and congruency in our actions constantly. Okay. Hello, why not Mars? So great to see you. Just Michael, great to see you. Grandizer, great to see you. Sandra, wonderful. Andres, one, welcome. Dr. Mafona and Gillian, so great to see you. Chrissy, feeling wellness. How can we heal our generations if there's no possibility of contact with them? Yeah, I'm going to talk about this in another video because here's what I discovered. When you are meditating and you begin to follow your emotions back to the root cause of your emotions, you begin to activate DNA. Okay, so when you start deprogramming the false programming of parent, influence, cultural, religious, systematic conditioning, all the false masks and ideas that you put on yourself, and you find the true self inside there, which, by the way, is all and nothing simultaneously. Okay? What you're going to find, and by the way, all of that sounds like a lot of work, but all you're doing is you're learning how you have constantly in your life chosen love or fear. That's all you're doing. If you look at yourself since the womb until now and begin to understand where you've chosen fear over love, you will very clearly understand how you have contracted. I'm going to do another video on that. But essentially, this is the activation of DNA. As you begin to recognize where you have embodied fear instead of love, you are expanding parts of yourself. DNA, multidimensional layers of your body. What's in that DNA? What's in the multidimensional layers of your body? You're also going to be expanding your level of connection to your body. Right now, majority of you are like this. This is all you know of your body is this much. What's up here? That's all you know. You don't know what's going on in your back. You don't know why your hip hurts. You don't know why your knee hurts. When you do this healing and you begin to look at your emotions, you know why your hip hurts. You're holding on to resentment. You have this feeling. You traumatized this feeling as a child and you're storing it in your body. You're going to know. This is the level of awareness I'm inviting you. The more you reconnect with your physical body, the more you're going to access the memory that is suppressed within yourself throughout your life. And in the same way that you recover your memory all the way back to the womb, as I have done, every single age, year of my life, I remember everything that has happened with myself, with my family, and all of the members of my family during those hours of meditation, 9 hours a day. This is what I uncovered. When you get to the root of that, and you go back to the womb, you begin to uncover another layer of memory. And you begin to uncover your parents' memory, mother's memory, father's memory. Their memory of their life experiences is available to you. Okay, this is not just a random thing. This is a real thing that happens. And I see it in my sessions with my clients all the time. You tap in to the Akash, to the eighth chakra, which is the DNA of the earth, which is the DNA of your ancestral lineage. Okay, so this is what happens when you start to uncover those layers of emotional programming. You literally begin to access the memory of mother and father, and then you go down to the generations and begin to uncover grandparents, grandmothers. I mean, I uncovered secrets about my family that they don't even know. Like my parents don't even know, their aunts don't even know, and unbelievable things. And what it helped me, and it's not that you're just random information. We begin to access the information necessary for us to be able to integrate the fractals of ourselves and to heal and to become whole and to understand where you come from and why. So you can go all the way back to your ancestral lineage, going back to your place of your ancestral roots, and you're going to uncover collective programs. Okay, so we uncover our own programs, family programs, ancestral programs, collective programs, global programs, interdimensional programs, and then universal programs. This is how we work. And by the time you start getting universal programs, that's when you start opening up your awareness to ET consciousness, essentially, or interdimensional consciousness, as what happened to me. When I already accessed that layer, that's when I had my absolutely lucid conscious experience. Okay, so and from there on, begin to have those experiences. So it's really important that you understand this in your healing. And also, I need to also mention that this healing of your emotional body is what trains your neutral set 0 point. Okay. You cannot just jump into remote viewing or connecting to your ancestors and then have a clear, truthful, broad perspective if you're polluted with all kinds of biased emotions and you don't know who you are. Who you are is all and nothing, and it's the 0 point. Okay. But if you have a lot of trauma that you haven't healed, your perception of their truth is going to be very limited, and it's going to be really hard for you to see truth. So it's really important to deprogram these limiting belief systems and cultivate your intuition. The whole reason that we heal our own trauma is to cultivate intuition, because you can't have a clear intuition when you have trauma still in your body, because you're blocking your energy, you're blocking truth, you're blocking your flow of life force. Okay, so that's something super important that we need to understand. So for those of you that say, hey, you can't tap into mom and dad, you're going to be making it up, you're just seeing it through your perception. Well, no, there's a process that you have to clear up your subconscious mind, and you have to learn how to practice your intuition, which is never tainted by the emotional body. It's absolutely neutral. Absolutely neutral. When you tune into pure intuition, your emotional body is quiet. That's why we go into martini state, reading state. You close your first 3 chakras and you open your top 3 chakras, the heart, the throat, the third eye. That's how you can see things from a place that is true, not from down here, because you're only going to be seeing it from a very limited perception. That's why it's super important to learn how to control your chakra system. Okay. PJ says, so what about loyalty? If everyone randomly has sex, won't we take up others' traumas? Also, religion has taught us sex is leaking of our life force energy. Loyalty, there's too many questions that are not really connected there. Loyalty, what loyalty? Loyalty to what? To yourself? To who? To what exactly are you talking about? If everybody randomly has sex, won't we take up others' traumas? Everybody, well, first of all, there is no random sex. In this universe, there's no random sex. I'll tell you that for sure. Okay? Because this organism called the planet Earth and all humans that are cells on this body of Earth, we are attracted by higher laws, self-organizing laws of resonance, number one. And this self-organizing system, even the place that you live right now, let's say you moved across the world to Iceland and you live in Iceland, you are meant to be there based on your multidimensional ancestry, based on your vibrational frequency, based on karmic history, based on lessons that you need to learn, based on the neighbors in Iceland that need to learn from you. Okay, this is such a unified, co-created system of consciousness. There's never a random thing. We do have free will, but that free will is like, okay, if you wake up consciousness, are you going to repeat the pattern of attracting a toxic partner again? Or are you going to break that pattern and then now choose a partner that is truly aligned with you? That's where our free will plays a role. Other than that, we're cycling through karmic law, which is providing limitations for our vibrational frequency if we are not aware of it. So there is no random. There is no random sex, okay? Religion has taught us sex is leaking of our life force energy. I don't know what religions teach that, to be honest with you, unless they're rooted in esoteric religious belief systems. But yeah, so religion, based on my research, has done a lot of work to suppress an understanding of your primordial life force, your sexual energy. And really the books that were holding that wisdom were eliminated from the Bible, for example, or from other texts in history. So the cultivation of our sexual energy, your sexual energy is primordial life force, and it becomes leaked when we redirect our attention externally in a way that is not coming from a centripetal pool, which is love. Okay, so anytime that we use sex not with love, that is the depletion of your life force, period. Okay, so sexual energy is always used with pure love. Pure love. That is when it's healing for you, for both parties, and you're not engaging in parasitic interactions of life force. So you're not taking something from the other, or you're not giving unconsciously from the other. Okay. All right. So Charles says, how much of an impact does self-love affect the way we build wealth and experience true prosperity? Yeah. So there's a couple elements of this. I mean, first of all, we need to look at ancestrally the relationship with wealth, because if that is a big theme in your life, you need to understand why that's a big theme. If the need for wealth is focused on creating a sense of worth, a deep sense of worth, then it's going to pose challenges that will trigger those programs of not having worth. And your lessons to tap into wealth are going to be based on learning that, okay? So in the higher law, the focus is never to have wealth. The focus is to come into harmony. and abundance emerges financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, materially, usually when the person is more detached from those things, usually when the person is able to understand their self-regenerative conductivity, in where all of the needs are met internally first. And when our needs are met internally first, we tap into a stream of abundance and co-creation that is aligned with our purpose. And the moment that you align with your purpose, the first purpose is to heal yourself and become whole in the context that I've explained today. This is where your gifts become available to you. And those gifts, whether it's a very strong intuition, whether it's your ability to heal from the trauma you have and help others heal from the same trauma, whether it's to be of service to humanity in some ways, those ways of holding your gift are going to be the streams that will tap you into the material wealth that you require from this world. But, you know, in order to reach that, there has to be a very deep understanding of what drives the need for wealth and prosperity. So it's important to look at the ancestral relationship with that, because chances are that you're going to be repeating a lot of patterns for generations and generations. And even if you come from a super wealthy family, the reason why they became wealthy, or the reason why they were never happy when they were wealthy, those kinds of things are going to be the things that you're going to really be looking at. That's kind of the nature of, you know, this human experience. Okay. Love, love, love. Hi, Geraldine. I'm realizing that my dreams shift between prophetic, remote viewing to regular problem solving. Are we supposed to easily identify with each dream state is which? Yeah, dreams are extremely important for us because literally we are playing out higher laws and higher experiences in our dream state. In fact, our dreams are part of your soul work that you're doing, and they are more impactful and more real than even this current lifetime. So pay attention to the kind of dreams that you're getting. The more lucid you become, the more clear what you're doing there will be. And as I can see, you're already doing a lot of work, which allows you to have those kinds of dreams. Because for some people that are completely disconnected from their selves, their dreams are very convoluted. They don't understand not even the meaning. They can't even get a gist of what the purpose is. So obviously, you've been doing a lot of work in order to have this level of dream that's prophetic and remote viewing. So keep going in that direction and practice lucidity. I do have classes on lucid dreaming on my website. You can feel free to check those out. But we want to train lucidity so that when you do embody awareness in your dream state, you begin to apply your free will. Okay, so we are learning as multidimensional beings of consciousness how to have free will multidimensionally, not just in this earth plane. And that's something that we're still learning. We still need to understand. So, yeah. Darina says, I went into the womb last time I meditated and I started to hear you as a static and far away, and I got afraid I will pass out. Okay, so there's a couple things here, Darina, that's really important for this. We really need to look at our relationship with how we felt safe or how we didn't feel safe as a child, okay? And I want you to focus on the emotion that you most felt in your mother's womb. And if that emotion that you felt in there was one of isolation or separation, you're not just tapping into me being separate, but you're tapping into a repetitive emotion that even mother might have felt at that time. Okay, so that's coming up a lot. And I know that you're super intuitive, Darina. So next time you come into this meditation, I invite you to go back there And if you can, you can even tune into the womb with your eyes open and heighten your senses to what you were sensing and feeling. Have a notebook that you're going to write down, because when we write things down, we're helping release some of the energetic tension that we're holding on emotionally. Okay. And when we're disconnected from our emotions become very overwhelming. Okay. So they can it can distract us from getting the pure information, or we're stuck in the story. Okay. So have a notebook with you and jot down a list of the sensations and emotions that you're recognizing there in the womb, and then start working from there. Okay. And you're going to do a combination of tuning into the emotions, checking in with your body, and then kind of like remote viewing or individual mind or knowing mind, tapping into what you felt in the womb. Okay. So yeah, and it's very important to not be afraid. Make sure that you're super grounded. Make sure that you have your first three chakras closed, top three open, and your bubble is really nice and solid around you. And I strongly suggest that you work incrementally in the emotions leading into your womb stage, maybe at birth, maybe as a child, and then working back. Okay. So PJ says loyalty to the partner all throughout our life. Yeah, that's totally a choice, a very individual choice, and it really depends on whether you and your partner are evolving um, harmoniously in alignment. Okay, Stephanie, not yet. Stephanie, so good to see you. Not yet. Hi, Geraldine. I've recently been struggling with fully quieting the mind and enter state of calmness. I'm realizing I'm afraid of surrendering because in that stillness, I encounter the divine within. Yes. And Darina, this is also something that you might want to observe. Anytime that we are afraid of surrendering and encountering the divine. So, first of all, I want to ask the last time that you have gone into moments of surrender for you, what happened there? Okay, so if you've had a trauma around surrendering in the past, maybe it's a newly formed or newly realized trauma, but we need to take a look at that. A lot of people over the past 5 years have really have this trauma about surrendering because of the global changes that are happening, okay? Because our comfort zones are being completely uprooted, and they have to be, because again, things have to change. The old system is not working anymore. So what you're facing, Stephanie Cruz, it's not just a very individual thing, it's a really collective thing. Okay, and for a lot of you over the past year, you've experienced different phases of very difficult time meditating and connecting to the divine in a way that felt safe. And that's because the invitation was to anchor it more into the physical, to ground more into the physical body. So, number one thing, Stephanie, ground yourself, really, really come into your body. And really, really train yourself to observe the emotions, the uncomfortable emotions that are coming up for you, so that you can begin to work and alleviate some of the tension that is occurring subconsciously. We are afraid of the divine because there's parts of our emotions that feel too overwhelming to sit with and address. So I want you to connect with what's coming up, each emotion, sit with it, observe it in your body, get to know it again. Notice what does the opposite of that emotion feel like in the body, and try to get to the truth of what you're feeling, at the root of that emotion. That's when you're going to start to re-familiarize yourself with the unknown. So what happens in this case is that we go through trauma, and the trauma makes us want to not see our truth. It makes us want to kind of reject what we're truly feeling. And that makes us not want to come into our authenticity and surrender, because the surrender is facing your authenticity. Okay. So work with that one in a way that you are sit in meditation, observe your emotions, name out your emotions, sit with the difficult emotions, let yourself get to the root. This is going to make it easier for you to incrementally retrain your body in order to embody authenticity and surrender again. Okay. So yeah, so we go through different cycles through life. Sometimes it's easy for us to surrender and sometimes it's not. It was very easy for me to surrender and let go in the past, but recently I was in fight or flight and now I have to retrain my mind that it's safe. Exactly. That's exactly right, Stephanie. You got it. And so again, it's in the emotional body. Right now, we have a lot of stored trauma in the emotional body. That's why we have to sit with it, okay? And release it little by little. I hope to see you again, Stephanie. Good to see you. Love you. Lauren Bruno says, today I had thoughts of dying again, and I was vibrating so hard it hurt. I was afraid and had to talk myself out of it and breathe deeply. Is there only an opposite to an emotion or spectrum of emotions? Okay, yeah, so Lauren, I want to remind you guys that right now we're going through major astrological changes and shifts that are affecting people in certain ways of feeling like everything is pointless, like it doesn't even matter, and that everything has lost hope. And I want you to understand that a lot of why we're feeling that way, it's because of the cosmic planetary shifts, because the universe is really asking you to reconnect with your true self without any distractions so that you can come back on your purpose, come back into divine harmony with yourself, into right order, okay? Because, we've become distracted and we need to come back to that. So what is true is that you exist here, and your existence is so ridiculously important at this time. The challenges that you're going through, your pain, your suffering, your love, your compassion is incredibly important at this time. And you need to remember and retaliate against any part of you that feels like it wants to dissolve or have these ideas of dying, because trust me, death is a futile thing. Wherever you, especially if you die, for example, you incarnate right back at the same suffering that you left. Okay, so this is something that I've learned personally, I've learned with clients, and I've also discovered and confirmed through hundreds of hypnotherapy sessions of life and death cycles for souls in every dimension, okay? When we leave at that time of despair, we come back into that vortex because that is a vibrational frequency. And death is a portal that is, again, based on the law of the universe of resonance. So this is something that's really important. What you're going to learn on the other side of that is that what made life so difficult is that we just couldn't face our emotions and integrate and accept the physical body. So I want you to understand that the mastery of your emotions, next time you're going to close your first three chakras, because what's happening is that your first three chakras are super out of balance or super overactive right now or extremely blocked. So I want you to clean your energetic body on a daily basis. Every single chakra, clean it. You're going to imagine spinning it super fast and white light cleaning it. You're going to imagine the spheres of your body clearing completely every single day. And I invite all of you to do that, okay? So clear your energetic body completely. And you're going to close your first three chakras and you're going to focus on expanding your heart, your throat, your third eye. And I want you to literally hug yourself and you're going to fill your body with love and affection and acceptance. You need to remind yourself that this world outside of us is a distraction. The internal is the truth. And when you love yourself, you will remember life purpose again. And the things that I that I did, in my journey when I was in these situations. Louise Hay was wonderful for that. She's a very kind, nurturing, maternal voice. You can listen to some of her videos on self-love and self-acceptance that are amazing. And it will reprogram yourself. So disconnect from everything and reprogram your mind back into love and begin to embody profound gratitude. Because as soon as you start being grateful for the little things, the roof over your head, the water inside the glass, little tiny things, you begin to come back into order. Okay, so remember, death is disorder. All we got to do is bring ourselves back into order, back into harmony, back into natural law, and we come back into compassion. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, let me come over here. Is there only an opposite to an emotion or a spectrum? Spectrum, always spectrum. Okay, but for each human, you're going to alchemize an emotion, which, as I mentioned, emotions have layers. All those layers are the spectrum of how you're storing the emotion in your body. Okay, so fear, anxiety, anger, hate. The hate, you go down. Hate, self-rejection, pain, suffering, fear. Okay, and when you get down to fear, to the root base, okay, then you can look at what's the opposite for you. Okay, so in this example, fear could be, absolute acceptance. And you'll notice that all of these emotions, regardless of what they are for you, will always result in either love or fear. So you want to identify what's your formula. Every single human has a formula to alchemize emotional trauma. And that's what we do in DNA reprogramming. But I guide it a lot here, and you can learn how to do that. Okay? Yeah, yes, you need to align more with purpose, let go of distractions. Also, please understand that there's a lot of psyop going on with news, and the politics right now tremendously are subliminally charged with emotional disruption. And we need to understand that, and you need to disconnect from that. You will know what is happening regardless, but you need to reconnect back with your truth and with nature. You need to connect back with nature. Okay? All right, let's start into the meditation, guys. Already went on too long. Go ahead and ground yourself down to the center of the earth. Visualize a bubble around your body. Come fully into your body. Connect down to the center core of the planet. You're going to fill your house with golden light. Go ahead and shrink your first chakra, your sacral, your solar. Expanding your heart, your throat, your third eye. Go ahead and expand your crown. From source, connecting up to the eighth. From the center of the earth, go ahead and pull up a powerful wave of green life force, comes rushing up into the body, creating a vortex of energy. From source, go ahead and pull down a powerful wave of gold cosmic energy down through the crown of your head, combining with the green earth energy. Begin to rotate that around your body. Go ahead and take 10% of that back down to the center of the earth, anchoring into the center core. Take 80% of that up your spine from the crown of your head, coating the outside of your bubble. Take that final 10% and bring it into the body, into the pores, the flesh, the muscles, the bones, down to the cellular level. Go ahead and take a look at all the emotions that you have where you do not accept yourself. Begin to observe, what do you not accept of yourself? As you observe, go ahead and notice the strongest one that you don't accept. Be absolutely present with that. Notice the emotions that come up for you. Be absolutely present with what comes up. Try to focus only on the emotion rather than the story surrounding the emotion. And go ahead and name out that emotion in your body. And as you name out the emotion, go ahead and name out the emotions that come up as you observe that emotion in your body. Go ahead and notice the strongest emotion that comes up. And you're going to observe that emotion in your body. Notice the strongest one. Go ahead and see this experience. Notice how the strongest one affects your body, how your body contracts as you feel it. Notice if you can recognize that emotion towards yourself. Take yourself back to the very first time that you felt this emotion towards yourself. Try to go back to the very first time that you repeat this, and you might see many versions of yourself repeating this program over and over again, this emotional program. Observe all these fractals of yourself and just notice, what is the similarity? What is the pattern that you're repeating time and time again? As you allow yourself to get to the root of that, begin to observe yourself. What is it that you need from yourself in that moment in order to not believe that or think that way or feel that way about yourself? As you begin to name out the things that you require, feel them fully in your body. What do you need in order to fully accept yourself? From yourself towards yourself, in order to be able to accept yourself fully. As you let yourself release all the tension in your body that you've been holding for the entire life, over and over again, in which you repeat this program. Let yourself acknowledge what you need in order to embody the opposite of that. If you could provide yourself with any information, any emotion, any understanding in that moment in order to alchemize this experience, what would it be? What do you need to understand about yourself? See that now. And as you begin to recognize what you need, go ahead and fill your body with that. Let your body feel fully what it feels like to embody exactly what you need in that moment. Notice what emotions come up as you are present with this awareness. Go ahead and see all the fractals of yourself merging into one self as you allow them to infuse this new awareness deep into the cells of their body. As you remind yourself of your divinity, that you are divine, that you are not this physical body. You are light, and so is everything else. As you begin to integrate this divinity into your cells of your body, allow yourself to notice all your ancestors recognizing their divinity as well. Inhale deeply, calling back your life force into your body from people, places, and things that you may have left behind unconsciously. And go ahead and integrate this aspect of yourself into your body, into the root, the sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye. As you allow yourself to open the root chakra, the sacral, the solar, the heart, throat, third eye. Fill your third eye, your crown, with your creative color. And you're going to shine your crown light on top of your room full of karmic contracts, and we're just going to eliminate them completely. It could be the size of a football stadium or a bedroom, however large it seems to you. Eliminate all of those contracts out of there. Look out for hidden rooms or trapdoors or back rooms. And in place of this empty room now, empty stadium, you're going to fill it with your crown color, setting the intention that we learn the lessons through compassion, love, and through the higher self rather than from the cyclical unconscious states of our awareness. Go ahead and activate your 8th, your 9th, your 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. As you connect up to source, I want you to anchor source down into your body, down through the heart, down through the perineum, into the center of the earth. As you expand your bubble around you, making sure it's fully intact and solid. Go ahead and open your eyes and come back into the room. And as you open your eyes, you allow yourself to come back into the room and be aware of your multidimensional body. Very good. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It was an honor to be here and share this space with you. I hope that this lecture brought you some awareness and expansion. And if you have any questions, please put it down in the chat. I'm going to answer just a couple more questions in the chat, and then we're going to close this. Roma says, as a child, I had out-of-body experiences, but as I grew up, I couldn't do that again. I feel very disconnected now. How do I get back into my practice? Yes. So number one, practice GPAC, and I do teach that on this channel. Basic energetic hygiene, grounding, aligning the chakras, co-creating your crown, and grounding, protection, your multidimensional body. And essentially, this is basically training you to be fully in the present moment and also work developing your intuition. And what you want to do is become lucid in waking state, and that will bleed into your dream state. If you practice GPAC every single day, at nighttime when you go to sleep, right before you go to sleep, you're going to repeat to yourself, do GPAC, ground yourself, connect, and you're going to go into the dream state, setting the intention that you're going to be conscious. Remember your dreams first, and then train yourself every night to become more and more lucid. I actually teach a class on this, and it's a lot of parts that I would love to share with you. You can check it out on my website. I have the full course there. It's a whole class on astral projection. So definitely take that out. Check that out, Roma. And check out some of my other videos because I have a lot of information on that. Thank you for being here. Geraldine, you never go long enough with the Q&A. I know, there's so many fun questions. I just love answering them. Jim, it's so great to see you. Grateful for this. You are an inspiration, are doing so much good in this realm for us. Thank you, Jim. It's so great to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jenny. Love, love, love. Thank you, Tor. Love you so much. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.